Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. The latest, according to WBC President Mauricio Suleiman, the WBC has been informed that Alicia Baumgardner has relinquished her super featherweight championship. Alicia became WBC champion back in 2021, knocking out Terry Harper, defending the title 6 times while also defeating other champions to become undisputed. We have always supported her and wish her success in her future inside and outside of the ring. What does Alicia Baumgardner vacating the WBC title herald? And how long after this can we expect her to vacate the other alphabet titles? Who becomes WBC super featherweight champion in the absence of Alicia? Well, Argentina's own Edith Soledad Matisse is the WBC silver champion, and ranked at number 1 is former champion Delphine Persoon. Thus, it's conceivable there could be a fight between Edith and Delphine for the newly vacated title. It is also just as conceivable that Delphine could end up facing number 2 ranked Layla Boudoir. I think that's how you pronounce that. In the absence of Alicia Baumgardner, what vacating the WBC title heralds is Alicia's moving up. In all likelihood, she's set to move up to 135. That is a more bubbling and bustling division right now, with more opportunities and more big names, some of which she's in close proximity to. Remember that Alicia is now being promoted by MVP, sporting a professional record of 16 wins with 1 loss and no draws, 7 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 17 professional bouts. Remember that she was among many women who recently signed to MVP, some of which are champions right up there at 135. Stephanie Hahn, who's got the WBA, her old buddy. Terry Harper, who's got the WBO. She could try to have a fight with any one of them. Last in action in July of this year, opposite the ring, Jennifer Miranda, who she decisioned over 10 rounds on the undercard of Taylor versus Serrano 3. She vacated the WBC. You can expect that she will vacate the other titles shortly. There's no reason to hang on to them, and there's no reason to stay at 130. There's nobody there. Whatever big names used to be there have already moved on. Alicia was the last one remaining. Her entry into the lightweight division really spices things up. I remember not that long ago she was mincing words with Caroline Dubois, WBC champion. You know, MVP's got a lot going on at lightweight. They've got Stephanie Hahn, they've got Terry Harper, they've got Holly Holm. But I feel like a potential target for Alicia, it's not any of them. Potential target for Alicia could be Caroline, because Caroline's been shooting off at the mouth, saying this and that. Caroline Dubois, who idolizes Clarissa Shields, who's no friend of Alicia Baumgardner. So you see how it works, and you see how it is. Baumgardner versus Dubois. That's a great fight. Caroline Dubois is still over there on the boxer side of things. Boxer that just inked a deal with BBC, but they have yet to do a show on the platform. So you figure that if Alicia and Caroline were to fight, it's not going to be on Boxer, and it's not going to be on BBC. It's going to be on an MVP show. It would be. Which would give Alicia Baumgardner home field advantage, in all likelihood happening in the United States and not the United Kingdom. Even if Caroline Dubois is the champion, Alicia is the bigger name. She's the one with the profile. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We don't know just yet that Caroline will be Alicia's very first fight at lightweight, where I anticipate she's going now. All we know is she just dropped the WBC title, and in all likelihood, she is going to drop the others. We'll see what happens. In men's junior middleweight news, Baumgardner Murtazaliev won't work for Virgil Ortiz due to IBF rehydration limit. Virgil Ortiz wants more than an interim 154-pound title. The hard-hitting Texan doesn't think newly crowned WBO champion Xander Zayas is serious about fighting him anytime soon. Sebastian Fundora, the true WBC champion, is scheduled to defend his title against Keith Thurman on October 25th in Vegas. Yeah, because Virgil's letting him. Virgil has been WBC interim champion for over a year now, without putting any pressure on Sebastian. You literally let this guy fight Cordell Booker, then you let him fight Tim Tszyu in a rematch, and now you're letting him fight Keith Thurman all before you get your crack at the apple. Why are you putting more pressure on Xander than Sebastian?
For the optics.
I already told you, that was not a serious offer they sent to Xander Zayas. They only did what they did to try to make Xander look bad. And they only want to make Xander look bad to distract you.
Distract you from the fact that Virgil Ortiz is 27 years old and he still hasn't fought for a title.
Robert Garcia, Virgil's trainer, scratched the unbeaten Russian off the list of potential opponents, too. Murtazaliev's promoter, Kathy Duva, is in negotiations with Josh Kelly's handlers for them to fight next. But Ortiz wouldn't consider fighting the winner either if he defeats Erickson Lubin on November 8th. Champions and challengers in the IBF title fights can only gain a maximum of 10 pounds between official weigh-ins and the second day weigh-in the following morning. Ortiz 23-0 with 21 KOs and Murtazaliev 23-0 with 17 KOs, therefore wouldn't be able to weigh more than 164 pounds after they make weight. So that's a non-starter for Ortiz, who battled rhabdomyolysis, a rare muscle condition, towards the end of his run in the welterweight division. Ortiz settled comfortably into his new weight class, but Garcia and the rest of his team remember all too well their fighter's physical difficulties that caused him to withdraw from 3 fights in 2022 and 2023. The IBF champion is also there, available, Garcia told The Ring, and that's probably a fight that can easily be made, but we have to be real too. The IBF has a next day weigh-in, and you can only gain 10 pounds, and that's not going to work with Virgil. We're not going to risk him. That'll be hurting him, especially with what he's been through in his life, health-wise. After the weigh-in, we need to right away feed him. We need to give him everything he needs to recuperate and to be strong for the next day. We can't hold his body to only gain 10 pounds for the next day. In the morning, that's impossible for Virgil. So the IBF is also out of the picture because of that. And even if you want to give Virgil grace,
You give him a pass. You say it's too dicey fighting for the IBF based on that rehydration clause. That's still no excuse for you to not target Sebastian. In the thick of all of this, Virgil has an interim title that lines him up for Sebastian, and he's had it for over a year.
and I've not seen Virgil express the interest in Sebastian in that entire year that he presumes to have for Xander Zayas.
What about Abbas Baru? Abbas Baru was just elevated to full WBA champion after Terence Crawford's big win over Canelo. Lest we forget, up until recently, Terence was WBA junior middleweight champion. That has changed.
Now it's Abbas Baru. Even if you don't want to deal with the IBF's rehydration clause, you still have Sebastian Fundora and you still have Abbas Baru.
You can fight them. Who he's fighting? He's fighting Erickson Lubin.
Ortiz versus Lubin will be staged as a 12-round main event from the Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas. Ortiz, of nearby Grand Prairie, is listed by most sportsbooks as a 6-1 favorite to beat Lubin, a southpaw from Orlando, Florida, who's already been beaten from pillar to post at least 2 times already.
These are just my thoughts.
In my last live stream, one of the panel members asked me, why do I think Virgil isn't putting pressure on Sebastian? If he's been interim champion for that long and he wants to fight for a title, why doesn't he try to fight him?
They made an agreement behind closed doors. I believe that Samson Lukowicz, who promotes Sebastian Fundora, made an agreement with Oscar and Eric Gomez.
They're gonna keep their boys away from each other, is what they're gonna do. Golden Boy Promotions provided assurance that Virgil would not pursue Sebastian, so Sebastian can have his pick of the litter. That's why I think Virgil hasn't gone after him. They made an agreement.
If Sebastian does end up fighting Keith Thurman, and he beats him, I anticipate Sebastian will then leave the junior middleweight division and move up to middle, vacate the title, at which point Virgil will then be elevated to full champion.
Email champion.
That's what I think the plan is. That's what I think the play is. But being elevated to champion is not the same as beating a champion to be a champion. It's the fight you should want, after all, not just the belt. The belt by itself isn't worth that much.
It's the fight, and winning the fight that enhances your profile. It's the audience watching that fight that lends itself to your marquee value. Better still, that is what I expect to happen. If Sebastian beats Thurman and Virgil beats Lubin,
They're gonna play musical chairs with the WBC title.
though even with that, I have questions, I have queries, because 154 really isn't that far from 147, and I wonder how long can Virgil make that weight? Make it healthy, make it match fit, because he's a big boy, and I reiterate, 154 ain't that much bigger than 147. How long before that weight gets harder to make?
I think that's a question that's going to need an answer in the not-so-distant future. For now, he's defending his interim title against Erickson Lubin in what I view as a pointless fight, because the only point in having an interim title is so that you can eventually fight for the full one. But you don't seem to want to fight for the full one. You just want to get elevated to it instead. And you can make of that what you will.
Now, speaking of poor promotion, Dana White didn't have his best week. His t-shirt shrank smaller every minute, especially when he was questioned about his attempt to amend the Muhammad Ali Act. You're saying this reporter is an asshole because he's asking you a legitimate question? That's because the Muhammad Ali Act protects fighters, and TKO needs it to change so they can fuck fighters over. Sorry, Uncle Fester. You can't muzzle the boxing media like you do in the UFC.
That's right.
And after this debacle, he decided to skip the undercard and shows up in the beginning of the main event where he's just watching the UFC on his phone the entire time. I wonder if he regrets abandoning the UFC for a sport that doesn't want him. It's like having a loyal girlfriend and ditching her for a hot one-night stand who ghosts you. You're left with nothing, and you go home with a hairy palm. That's Dana White.
Another instance of Oscar De La Hoya minding people's business while throwing stones in a glass house, because for starters, that wasn't a poor promotion. Have you seen the viewing figures for Crawford versus Canelo? They're through the roof. More so than anything Oscar's done, and I don't know how long.
Oscar does these clapback Thursdays, chastising everybody, as if he's in any position to tell them what to do and how to do it, when, buddy, if you were that knowledgeable, Turkey would have used you as his point man, not Dana.
You know that's the second time that Oscar De La Hoya got passed over in the American market. When DAZN debuted in America, why did they go with Eddie Hearn? Why did they go with a Brit to be the point man for their debut in this country? Why didn't they go with Oscar?
Because Oscar's a train wreck.
Oscar's boxing's equivalent of Charlie Sheen minus the STDs. So you got passed over by DAZN to be their point man in America in spite of all your years of expertise, and you got passed over by Turkey El Al-Sheikh, who trusts Dana White to run a business more than he trusts you. And these ass clap Thursdays are a perfect example of why.
Why?
You're so enthralled in what everybody else is doing and everybody else's business when look at your own.
Have you found a successor for Ryan Garcia when he leaves? Because it's only a matter of time before he does, and he's the only guy you got that can draw anything.
He never really found a successor for Canelo Alvarez, who left him. Very soon, Ryan might end up leaving him. Sinicia Estrada already did.
So did Jaime Munguia, and it would seem like Oscar was the last to know when that happened. He thought Jaime was still with them.
And you think you're in any position to chastise Dana White over how this past weekend's fight was promoted when, by all accounts and by every quantifiable metric, it was a success. It was a massive success.
God, it makes me horny.
Yeah, baby.
To tell you I told you so.
I told you.
I predicted the Canelo Crawford fight like a goddamn fortune teller.
You're the Oracle?
Canelo's feet were cemented on the canvas as he was hitting air. What the fuck was that? Props to Crawford.
Thank you.
He came up 3 weight classes and fought a beautiful fight.
Good job.
What a great performance.
Did you get what you was looking for?
Like taking candy from a baby.
My candy.
He just played with Canelo, made him look silly. And before you start with your shit about Canelo being old, just know that Crawford is older.
I'm too old.
That's not an excuse here. Look, I promoted Canelo's entire career,
Put some fucking respect on it.
and it was a huge flop.
How do you like them apples?
The only real fighters he's faced were Mayweather, Bivol, and Crawford. and they all toyed with him. Even Mayweather knew Crawford was going to school him.
Thank you.
He put $50,000 on Crawford to win.
No, it's not really Ass Clap Thursday, unless Oscar makes his token Canelo Alvarez reference. Of course, he's celebrating that Canelo Alvarez lost to Terence Crawford, chastising him for losing to a smaller man moving up, but last I checked, Oscar lost to a smaller man moving up. You lost to Floyd, the same as Canelo.
What are you, brain dead?
You lost to Manny Pacquiao, who is an even smaller man moving up. So how do you now turn around and chastise Canelo, who, if he retired today, he would have made more money from his career than you made from yours,
Yep.
and he would have retired with less losses than you've got. Canelo's got 3.
You've got 6. 2 of which were by way of knockout. Did you forget that Bernard folded you up like a beach chair? And did you forget that little old Manny beat the brakes off of you?
Canelo may be a target for a lot of criticism right now, but no matter how he went out, he never went out as bad or as sad as Oscar De La Hoya, and Canelo has remained a consummate professional throughout the entirety of his career up until this point. He wasn't a substance abuser, a junkie like Oscar De La Hoya, betting prostitutes and begging them to peg him.
There are no embarrassing photos of Canelo on the internet wearing fishnets.
Oscar has suffered humiliation after humiliation to the point where he has no shame, and that is what allows him to try to air out everybody else's dirty laundry.
It's because he's not embarrassed, but he still should be. Canelo Alvarez left Golden Boy Promotions more than 5 years ago. Why are you still obsessing about this guy? He moved on. Why can't you?
And then he has the audacity to bring up Dana White and the amendments to the Muhammad Ali Act, claiming that it protects fighters. Yet it protects fighters from promoters like you, with reputations like yours. Or did you forget? Canelo accused you of stealing money. Shane Mosley accused you of stealing money. Juan Manuel Marquez accused you of stealing money.
Ryan Garcia said that you backdoor your own fighters. You double-cross your own fighters, which would explain why so many of them ended up leaving you, and some still want to.
He does.
So without any context, these Ass Clap Thursdays Oscar likes to upload might seem amusing without any context. But when you know the backstory, you know the history, you can't take Oscar seriously.
He's an unserious person. The whole reason that Al Heyman and Richard Schaefer were able to backdoor you is because you don't know how to keep your eyes on the ball.
You're an unserious person.
And for all the criticism that you like to dispense about everybody else, you should look in the mirror, self-evaluate. You're in no position to talk about these people. Anything you have to say about them, they can turn right around and say about you, but because they have better things to do, they don't bother.
It's the only reason you can, because you ain't got nothing better to do.
Don't you have a business to run? Fighters to promote and new fighters to sign? You shouldn't worry about Dana. You shouldn't worry about Canelo. They're not worried about you.